So for this assignment, for research notes assignment, so just to clarify, this is for English 104. We have, in module 6, we did 2 sources on the internet. In module 7, you did 2 sources within the databases. So for this assignment, you're once again gonna go find 2 sources, and you're gonna actually take notes on specific things within those sources. Now, in this particular one, I want to emphasize, you may not use anything that you have already submitted prior. So you can't use this sheet on the first 2 from the web, and you can't use it on the databases. I want you going out and finding 2 more additional sources. Now, that being said, if you want to go back into the databases and get 2 more from the databases, 2 from the internet, but you could also, if you already know you want to do a personal interview, or if you have a book, you could do this sheet with those as well. Okay, so in this assignment, I do not matter I don't care about the type of source. It can be any type, from a database, from the internet, print copies, interview, that kind of a thing. However, you cannot use you can't reuse anything prior already. So on this sheet, we are still evaluating, okay? So remember, the prior 2 weeks, we've essentially been seeking out sourcing and evaluating them for credibility. You are still doing that. You're still evaluating the source. So this is why I want you to fill out these items. You're gonna do very similar to what we've done in the past. Source number 1, you're gonna give me what type of source it is and the location you found it. So for example, what date you found this, and then where did you find it? Did you find it within a specific search engine like Google? Did you use Google Scholar? Or did you go to our library, and the SMC library, and find it in the card catalog? Or did you ask Jen Zimmer, our reference librarian, and she got it for you? How did you find the source, and where was it? And then what search terms you used to find it, et cetera, et cetera. And then tell me the type of source. This is all kind of review. We've done this the last couple of weeks, but this is where it gets a little different. I want you to give me very detailed source information. So you're going to give me the author, the title, the date it was published, where it was originally published, right? And then of course the URL or DOI. And I do want to emphasize here, on the annotated bib that you're building and on your source sheets, the web source and the database source, when you are citing in the works cited entry, you choose either the DOI or the URL. If there is a DOI, you list the DOI. DOI is digital object image, okay? You list that. If they don't have a DOI, then you use the URL, and don't forget to include the access, what date access. You don't do both. It's either DOI or URL with a date access, okay? And then here's the big one. Is it a scholarly or a popular source? Which type is it? So remember, scholarly is peer reviewed by the peers, right? And popular is kind of like for the masses, right? And then this is where the detail comes in. You need to give what the author's main points are within this article that you have. And do this in your own words. I don't want to copy paste of the article. I want you essentially summarizing what are the author's important points, main points from this article that you got, okay? And then how do you think you're going to use this information? So now you're thinking, oh, this is a good source for my essay. How would I use this information within my essay? Am I going to use it as maybe one of the support points of evidence for my stance? I'm going to use it to address the counter arguments, right? Or any of those kinds of things. So you have to explain this source, how it's going to be used within your essay, how you anticipate using it. And then the last one is some important quotations from the source that you're going to integrate into your essay. So, and again, I want you to include the page number of where the quotes are found for each one that you're going to use from the article. item. Now, remember, your essay, one of the things you are being measured heavily on is how you integrate quoting. How are you integrating the quotations? You need to use a variety of citation. So for example, you may do some paraphrasing, you may do some summarizing in which you're referring to information, but you also have to demonstrate that you have integrated quoting into your essay. So this is kind of important that you're looking at your sources, and as you see quotations, make note of them, okay? So that is what you have to do for two sources. One source, and then you can see the second source, it's the same thing all over again. So this sheet's slightly different than the other two. The other two were very similar. It's just one was focused on web sourcing and the other was database. This, I'm really focusing on the note-taking portion. I am looking at all of it, obviously, and you have to have all of the items. But this section over here, let me highlight so you can see. This is what gets a really hard look for me. I'm looking at, are you able to summarize that article? Are you able to, basically tell me what the main points are of the article in your own words, right? In other words, just well, how you think you're going to be using it within your essay. And then any quotations that you think you may pull out of it to incorporate into your essay. So that kind of explains the research notes assignment. Again, you're going to use this worksheet, download it, type it right on there, save it, and then upload it. Now, if you have done, oops, sorry, let me get out of there. Get to our Moodle page, just a second here. So if you have been adhering to all the work so far, you, in module 6, you had 2 sources, 7, you have 2 more from databases, and then now 8, you're going to have 2 more. So you'll have a minimum of 6 sources. Now, in this notes one for research 8, I'm only demanding or requiring, let's use a nicer word. I'm only requiring that you do this for 2 sources, right? But ideally, for your own benefit, it's going to benefit you, is if you are doing this particular worksheet on all of your sourcing. So even if you go back and do it on your web sources and database sources, you can't turn them in for credit, but those notes and that information is going to help you tremendously in drafting your annotated bibliography. It is my hope that you are certainly taking copious notes on your sources. The better your note taking, the easier it will be to do your annotated bibliography. The other part of this is red flags should go up in your world if you don't have a lot to summarize in an article. What I mean by that is maybe you have a bunch of newspaper articles. Well, newspaper articles are notoriously short. They're not very lengthy. And although you may certainly be valuable in addressing some things, you're going to need a lot more sourcing in order to be able to flesh out your essay. So if your sources are primarily short or things like newspaper articles, you may want to look and start widening your search, trying to get a little more beefy articles in which you can have a sourcing to utilize within your essay. I'm just giving you a heads up because quite often 6 sourcing is not enough. That's the bare minimum, but it may not be enough for you when you go to do the final round. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the discussion forum. So in this week's discussion forum, basically what you're doing is you're going to just talk about how are you in particular engaging with the note-taking process. As I said a minute ago, you should be basically taking copious notes. It's not just about finding a source to go through the motions on my worksheet. Finding the sources are like, okay, I'm reading, I'm taking notes and start thinking about how will this be used in my essay. You know, you're building that foundation from which you can pull when you go to do your drafting. So how are you engaging in the note-taking process? What are you doing? While you're researching, what organization method are you using? And then include any information that you think would benefit others or that you just want to share that's pertinent to either recording your note taking or your organization style within your note taking. Okay, so essentially you're doing kind of sharing maybe tips, tricks, methods that may be of benefit to others.
Okay.
And then even if it's not beneficial to others, it's beneficial to you. So this discussion forum is meant for obviously all of them to connect with your peers and learn from your peers. So maybe you're going old school and you share, yeah, I'm writing out my notes and I have a notebook and I put the title on it. But then as you read the forums, you realize, oh, someone else has a really cool method that you're like, oh, I should try that. That would help me with the organization. That's what this is meant for, okay? I'm gonna be very brutal. I'm just giving you a heads up. 7 is always the minimum. 7 is a C. But on this one, it's basically you're sharing what's a benefit to you. So I'm going to be fairly brutal on grading in the fact that you need to hit 7 really good sentences or higher, right? 7 gets you to C, that's the 14 level in the post. And then you got to go beyond that if you're looking at the 16, 18, or 20. So think of it as like conversation, right? The more you have to offer, the better it is. Same thing for replies. Replies are a minimum of 4 sentences. It is not that difficult to create 4 sentences to further the conversation. Make sure it's of substance, right? We're not just giving platitudes. The other thing I want to kind of emphasize on this is greetings do not count as sentences. Neither do closings, okay? So that is not part of the sentence counts. The other thing I just kind of want to throw out there to be cautious, I've started commenting, so I hope you are reading the feedback comments that I make on some. You need to be careful of tone. This is set up in an academic arena, so I want an academic tone used. Now, I don't usually dock for tone unless it's completely inappropriate, but I'm noticing in some of the postings and or replies, that tone is bordering away from academic. So be mindful of that. I'm going to be looking very carefully at that in the postings for this particular forum. So pay attention to that. I think that's it for the discussion forum. And I think that's it for the research notes assignment. Just a reminder, I have all kinds of resources. So if you really don't know how to take notes or you've never done note taking before, you're not sure what that means, definitely look at these sources, annotating, Researcher's Guide to Annotating, all those kinds of summarizing sources. These are all good resources for you to help you so that you can either adopt a method of taking notes, an organizational structure, so to speak, or give you ideas in furthering a share to kind of maybe elaborate on what you already do. Okay, I think that's it for lecture record. So I'm going to stop recording and then I'm going to address questions and or concerns.